Namaste. This is always a joy, for me to make these videos. This is my, how I give back to the world for the blessings that I've gotten. And it makes me very happy that some people, at least, are listening. But I tell you what, in the last video, after 150 views, there were only 7 downloads of the chart. I mean, how are you going to learn anything unless you do some work? You guys are so lazy. I mean, wow. If I was learning that chart, if I had heard about a chart that showed all the 7 chakras, 7 energy levels, I would not only make sure I download a copy of it, I would take a ruler and paper and pen and draw it by hand, duplicate it. And that's how I would learn it. Then I would sit down and I would observe myself and I would realize it. So anyway, you're all probably not going to do that, so I'm going to have to put this thing in your face. Here it is. Chakra energy states. Now you see on the left-hand side there's the yogini, the kundalini, and the 7 chakras: sex, energy, motion, emotion, speech, thought, and ecstasy. I'm not calling these by the traditional names, but by modern names. And then across the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 energy states. So then looking back at the whole thing, what you really are seeing is 2 zeros. The first and the 7th energy state are both actually zeros. Look at the first column. Blank, none, sleep, 0. You see, the first energy level is almost like death, or being in the womb. It's the beginning. And then the highest energy level is realization, silence, completion, kundalini, enlightenment. Right? So the one is like nothing, the other one is like everything, and they're both infinite. So you can see the change here between the 2 zeros is like a fire that begins with nothing and ends with nothing. And then in between there's this blazing fire, the wheel of samsara, birth and death, karma, cause and effect. So if we look at these 7 chakras as the wheel of birth and death, samsara, a fire that eats up everything, then we can understand the transitory nature of life. The Buddha spoke a wonderful sutta about this. Let me read it to you. Monks, all is on fire. What is all on fire? That is, the eye is on fire. Forms, eye consciousness, eye contact, and feeling arisen in dependence on eye contact, be it painful, pleasant, or neutral, that is also on fire. In the same way, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind is on fire. Mental objects, mind consciousness, mind contact, and feeling arisen in dependence on mind contact, be it painful, pleasant, or neutral, that is also on fire. And with what is it on fire? It is on fire with the flames of lust. It is on fire with the flames of anger. It is on fire with the flames of delusion. And it is on fire with the flames of birth, old age, disease, death, worry, sorrow, vexation, and pain. Welcome to the material world. So I'm going to put this chart up again one more time. And now please see how this brings you through the different stages of the fire, through the different stages of this intense relationship between all and nothing. The all, which is the world, the manifestation, or as far as we're concerned, subjectively, the body and the senses, because that's how we perceive the world. The body and the senses are like a fire. It has its origin in conception, gestation, and birth. And then one comes out and grows and then produces some byproducts, dwindles and dies. So that's like the stages of a fire, exactly like the stages of a fire. So this vision of a fire superimposed on the world gives us an idea, an insight into how transitory the world is. But in that transitoriness, within it, are all these different states. All right. So they start from zero, and they go again to zero. But in between, there's 6 states, and the 7th brings return, as the I Ching says. See, it all fits together. So the 6 states are, well, 0 is the beginning. That's like deep sleep. And then waking. And then animal state of consciousness. And then from there, the basic human state. The advanced human state. The superhuman state. And finally, complete realization. See? These are the energy stages, the energy states of the whole system. Now, because the chakras are interdependent, not possible for one of them to reach the height without pulling all the other ones with it. So traditional paths of self-realization have specialized on the development of one chakra, or 2 or 3 maybe, a group of chakras, and then counting on them to carry the rest to the highest final state. And the way it's done in most transcendentalist type of paths is by negating the lower 3 chakras and working on the upper chakras. Now, this only works if a person is perfectly celibate. And that only works if they are raised from birth according to the principles of brahmacharya. See? But if a person is raised up in the ordinary way like today, and then later on they try to go into celibacy and brahmacharya, they're going to fail. So for the people today, we need a different course, a different way of dealing with the lower 3 chakras. And that is given by the Taoist path and Qigong. See? We have to replace the model of the lower 3 chakras used in typical yoga scenarios. The whole celibacy, sense control thing. We have to replace that with a set of practices that works for people who aren't celibate. So once the cat is out of the bag, once the sex habit, once the masturbation habit is established, to try to turn it off again only produces neurosis, repression, a lower energy state. One gets restricted to the lower 3 energy states. Sleeping, waking up, animal, and maybe, the lower human states. To reach the higher human states, higher levels of creativity, intelligence, and so on, one has to liberate that sexual energy. And this is why the great artists, like Picasso was such a womanizer. Oh my God. All the great artists, so many great artists, have been womanizers, have been great lovers, Elton John, the guy was incredibly promiscuous. And somehow or other he avoided AIDS. And he became such a great artist and communicates so many things that are universally human to so many people in the world, you know? So just see, some liberation of the sex energy is necessary even for the higher human attainments, okay? But to gain the highest, the sex energy has to be brought under control. It can only be brought under control by complete absorption of the mind. And absorption of the mind, again, can only be reached when it's pleasurable. You see? If one tries to be ascetic without the proper background, without being raised in brahmacharya, then all he does is turn himself into a neurotic. And we see so many examples, so many abundant examples of people who tried to follow the celibacy routine, but they had already got the sex habit going and they become monsters. They become angry. They become power hungry. They become hungry for money and fame and all this. And they become so nasty in their personal manifestations and relationships that you just don't want to be around them. And that's why people are leaving religion in droves, by the millions. They're being driven out by the religious leaders trying to be celibate before they're actually ready. And just making themselves crazy and making everybody around them crazy. So the way to avoid that is so simple. You simply take up Tantra. And I'm going to be doing the next series, on the Tantra, the Taoist Tantra source literatures. And then they say things like the yin and the yang have to be balanced. So the man and woman can come together. The woman is yin, the man is yang. Or two men or two women can come together. It says this right in the scripture. I'll be presenting this in the next series. They can be of the same sex, but they have to be of different temperament. For example, they give the example, this is very nice. In the monasteries, the monks are massaged after their workouts, which involve whipping and striking the body in different ways. They are massaged by young boys. Why? The young boys are yin. After generating all this yang qi from these heavy workouts, the yin of the young boys would balance the yin and yang in the monks' qi. You see? The balance has to be there to store a lot of qi, because they keep each other in check. So if one gets too yang or too yin, we see this a lot, with bodybuilders and stuff. They get so yang, they're taking all these steroids and stuff, anabolic steroids and testosterone, and they're all like, eating a lot of meat, So of course they're going to be tamasic, right? Or we see on the other side, intellectuals who are completely yin, and they're like, so wimpy and nerdy and faggy and, they're not really grounded. They're not really even in their bodies. They're on the mental platform. Extreme yin. These guys need each other. The wrestlers and the intellectuals, they ought to get together and balance their chi, man, Well, we know how to do that. We have all the methods. We have the experience too. So It's amazing. Just get in line. You know, the line is already around the block. I've already got 3 invitations to Europe next year. So I'm going to be doing kind of a tour. And then we're going to have the hands-on workshops. So you have to qualify yourself for that. See, I always save the really good stuff for the end. So you people who watch to the end, you get all the goodies. So also there's a group, how can I say, a signal group devoted to Secret Heaven teachings. And of course they get all the goodies in advance and all that stuff. So you might want to join that. You might want to inquire from me how to be a part of that group. And what else is new? Okay, so I think this is the conclusion. Finally, I got the chart in your face. I still put the link to download it in the video description. So you should download it so you have a copy. And then you should study it. Try to observe it in your life. This will help you. It doesn't matter, you know, almost doesn't matter how you analyze your perceptions. Whether according to Vedic Sankhya or according to Buddha's teaching, according to the senses, 6 senses and sense objects and like that, or according to the chakras, or, you know, somehow energy levels have to come into it. And you have to see which chakra is at which energy level and how to balance them. Because when they're balanced, you get a synergy that leads you to a higher level and ultimately to enlightenment. Om Tat Sat. Buddhu Saranai.